Hello, world changers. I am so glad you could join me again today. Remember, where we last let off, they figured out that the clue led them to Walt's first pen that he used, and that might be in an attraction at Disney World. But somebody was coming up to Wayne's apartment, so then they hit the button, went back to the real world. That's where we left off. Let's start. Chapter 28. The Transportation and Ticket Center hummed with conversation as a tangle of park visitors shuttled between buses and monorails. Some families were ending their days just as others were starting theirs. On a Monday afternoon, thick with humidity, the tired and impatient mingled with the exhilarated and anxious. For some, a day spent; for others, an evening full of promise. The humidity hung in the air so heavy you could practically wear it like a coat. Above the giggles and shrieks of excited children and the scornful reproaches of their exhausted parents, the purr of a train approached could be heard. "We're off to a late start," Philby announced, checking his watch. Charlene's cheerleader practice had delayed them. It's almost 4:45. "One man's dream closes at 5, Willa informed them. "We're okay, we'll make it," she turned to Finn. "What if we're accidentally inside when it's closed for the night?" Philby shot down her suggestion. "There's no way the 5 of us will be able to hide out in there and get locked in. Forget it." Finn said, "But one of us might be able to." Philby said, "There are at least 9 security cameras inside one man's dream. If even one of us is seen there after closing, we are in big trouble." "Maybe not," a familiar voice came from behind him. Finn, it was Amanda. She was sitting in the front part of the train car, her back directly toward him, exactly behind Finn. This is anything but coincidence, he thought. Finn had barely spoken to her since that day at the skate park, when it seemed to him like she'd known way too much, or was keeping something from him. His intentional avoidance of her hung in the air between them. Finn introduced her around to those who had not met her. She told Finn candidly, "You saw me in the park last night, Main Street, not far behind you." The 4 other DHIs looked at Finn as if he'd betrayed him. "That's because I followed Jez there after school," Amanda explained. Amanda was in the park. "Jez," Maybach blurted out. Amanda said, "Jez never left the park at closing. She went into Pirates of the Caribbean and never came out. I hid in the bathrooms behind Pirates and waited for the park to clear. Then I hid in a stairwell and waited." "Are we supposed to believe this?" Charlene asked. Believe what you want," Amanda snapped at her. After closing, it was her turn to hide. She took a place on Main Street. "You guys just arrived all of a sudden. I mean, 1 minute no one was there on the bench, and then there you were. It was the weirdest thing. And she followed you." "And you followed her," Finn said. Philby tested her. "She followed us where?" Amanda answered. "She followed you and Finn to Thunder Mountain, and so did I." Maybach nodded. What he heard made sense. This is solid, guys. This girl Jez sounds like trouble. Later, she went over to Cosmic Rays, Amanda said. Charlene went pale. "But why?" "Yeah, why would Jez follow us?" Philby asked curiously. Amanda said, "Curiosity killed the cat." Finn and Maybach exchanged glances. Finn asked, "Where is she now?" "She followed you, Finn, today after school. I lost her at the Transportation and Ticket Center, but she is around here someplace." Charlene snapped. "Since when did you become our guardian angel, Amanda?" "My mother works at MGM, Amanda said, "in administration, in one of the old bungalows. I've been there like a zillion times. They know me. The main security office for the park is in that building." She hesitated a moment and then said, "I know those guys. I can distract them. If I think they're going to see you on one of the screens, I can draw their attention." "I'll just bet you can't," snarled Charlene. "I don't know about this," Finn said. It sounded complicated to him, like risky. "I can help you," she suggested. "I can signal if they're onto you." Still, Finn hesitated. "You need someone to warn you." He'd known for some time that she wanted to be a DHI, wanted to be part of our adventure. Showing off her knowledge of the area, Amanda told Philby, "Listen, there's a sound and light tower right here on the left, on the side door to One Man's Dream. From up there, one of you will be able to see pretty much all around the park. You'll be able to spot the security patrols way before they've reached the attention." Willa suggested. "All in favor of Amanda helping us out?" Amanda's hand went up, but Finn was noticeably slower than the others. Noticing his reluctance, Amanda scrunched her face at him. I just don't want you getting into trouble, or worse, for something you're not involved in, he said. This can be dangerous, Amanda. You need to know that before you volunteer. Amanda's nostrils flared. She looked angry. I can take care of myself. Willa and Charlene grinned. Charlene, usually the most reluctant of the five, said, okay then, it's decided. Once inside MGM Park, so this is a different park than the Magic Kingdom, they quickly split up to avoid recognition. Finn and Willa headed up Sunset Boulevard. Amanda split from the group, presumably to reach security. Philby sought out the Sound and Light Tower, with Charlene as his runner, in case he spotted them. You don't look so hot, Willa told Finn. Just nervous, I guess, Finn said. They had come up with a decent plan on how he might hide inside One Man's Dream, but he wasn't eager to test it. He asked, what if they count heads? What if they know how many go in and out of the theater? Willa considered this and said, nah, they don't do stuff like that. Maybe they're counting people going into the park, but not on the rides. That doesn't make sense. I don't know. They might. They might, but they don't. The two passed the 50-foot high replica of Mickey's sorcerer hat that stood in front of the Chinese theater and served as a bandstand. They stopped at a kiosk selling pins and film, hats, stuffed animals, and postcards. One Man's Dream was crowded with grandparents and mothers with strollers trying to escape the muggy heat. Finn passed several displays dealing with the history of the park and the way in which the Imagineers had realized Walt's dream. Willa waited near the entrance, doing a good imitation of a girl waiting for a friend. One of the displays showed Walt Disney's second-grade school desk from Marcine, Missouri. Finn studied the desk carefully, wondered if Disney's first pen might be inside. Its wooden top was hinged, with a shallow circular well cut into the bottle for a bottle of ink. Not exactly like the desk at our school, I bet, said a woman standing behind Finn. She was very old, with kind eyes, translucent skin, and a faint white mustache. She wore an employee name tag that said, Charlotte. Her hair was the color of a laundry lint. Her eyelashes were so pale that they were almost invisible, which left her eyelids looking like weird flesh-colored cups that blinked down over her eyes like a bird's. Her voice sounded like the squeal of a pitched balloon. Finn, who'd hoped to go through the exhibit unnoticed, blurted out, it didn't do anything. I didn't say you did, young man. She looked at him curiously. Am I too late to watch the movie on Walt Disney's life? No, not at all. There's a final showing in... She checked her watch. Well, you're gonna have to hurry. It's just down the hall and to your right. It's biographical, you understand. It's not like the Bug movie or PhilharMagic. Nothing like that. I know, Finn said. The woman's heavy perfume made him dizzy. It trailed after her like car exhaust. She apparently felt obliged to make sure he made it to there in time. Together, they walked past other displays. Finn caught sight of Walt Disney's West Coast office, the display Wayne had mentioned. Here we go, young man, the woman said. Wait here, and they'll show you inside. Finn saw another display. This one open to the air. No seal under glass. A drafting table with a bunch of pens and papers. Wayne had mentioned this as well. Which display, Finn wondered. The doors to the theater opened. Finn and a few others were shown inside. Finn took a seat near the back. The lights dimmed almost immediately, and the film started. Finn watched a few minutes of it, slouched down in his seat, and then slipped onto the floor. He curled up tightly under the seat in front of him in order to hide. The film ran for 15 minutes. Finn was already feeling stiff by the time it had finished. The theatergoers exited into daylight. Finn's heart raced in his chest as he hid, and the doors to the outside thumped shut, closing him in. The theater darkened. More sounds, ushers making small talk, people saying goodbye and goodnight. Then, silence. Finn stood still on the floor, uncoiled and relaxed his tight muscles. 2 minutes passed. 5. No sounds at all beyond the almost painful beating of his heart. He got to his feet, gathered his courage, and called out, "Hello?" prepared to invent some excuse if he had raised anyone. Nothing. He pushed through the doors and walked back into the main gallery. He tried once more. "Hello?" If discovered, he'd claim that he would be falling asleep, that he fell asleep during the meeting. Nothing at all. A few lights had been turned off, but the ones inside the displays were all off. Finn checked out the drafting table. He was disappointed to read the little sign that described the display. There was no mention of the drafting table having belonged to Walt Disney. It was just one of the many drafting tables used by the animation staff. There were a couple of pens and pencils, a clear plastic drafting triangle, and some papers scattered around. Finn carefully climbed into the display and opened some small drawers of the cabinet next to the drawer. They were all empty. Next, he returned to the display of Walt Disney's original office. There on the desk, both a mug and a cork globe held an abundance of pen and pencils, a dozen or more. My first pen. Finn knew just by looking at this that this was the place. He didn't want to steal anything. He reminded himself that this had been Wayne's idea, not his. They were borrowing the pens, nothing more. Wayne could return them, no harm. But how to get inside the glassed-in display? Finn didn't see any kind of door, except the one leading into his office, and it was in the back wall of the display. He saw no way in. He searched for the possible access door into the back of the display, assuming there was a hallway built behind the various windows. The only door he found, toward the main entrance, was not only locked, but far away from the office display. He backtracked, passing all the displays again. He found no door, no way back here, but there had to be some way to move furniture, dust, clean, change light bulbs. Only as he passed a blue poster for the third time did he happen to notice a small floor-to-ceiling gap. The poster was a sketch of the Earth with Mickey Mouse ears. The Earth was crying. The small description explained that the drawing had been a newspaper cartoon that ran following Disney's death. It depicted the world mourning for their loss. Finn shoved his fingers into the small crack and pulled. The poster moved and the door came back. He was inside in an instant. Just as he had stepped into the relative darkness behind the door, Finn heard 3 loud knocks at the distance. Willa's signal. Terror flooded him. Security guards were either in the area or headed for one man's dream. 5 knocks would signal that the coast was clear. He pulled the door shut behind him. This was a good place to hide, as any. A moment later, he stood absolutely still as he identified deep voices nearby, just through the wall. 2 men talking, inside the attraction. "You say it was an anonymous phone call?" one guard spoke to another. "A girl, young girl at that," the other said. "That's what Manny said, yeah, probably just a prank. You know kids that age. But if Manny wants it checked out, then we check it out." "You got that right." Finn held his breath as they drew close. "Thing is," the second guard said, "the front door was locked good and tight. We checked the other doors and there was nothing to worry about. No way someone was in here if all the doors are tight. False alarm, plain and simple. Am I right?" "You're right." "Okay, then let's go get some coffee." "I'm all over that." Finn waited several more long minutes without moving, practically without breathing. Who had called security? Amanda? Had she fed him a bunch of lies? Did she want Finn to get caught because of the way he'd excluded her recently? If they were caught now, their attempt to stop Maleficent would be thwarted. The park would eventually fall under her control. Worse, if she took her powers outside the park, who knew what would happen? Who knew what would become of the 5 kids who had once been DHIs? One anonymous call had nearly ruined everything. Now he heard a distant sound. 5 dull beats, like a fist on glass. That was the signal. His eyes adjusted to what little light was available in the dark hallway. He turned left toward the office display and soon reached a door marked WD's office. Finn opened the door, stepped inside, and was now standing in the display. He moved carefully, not wanting to nudge anything out of place or disturb the office contents. The air was stuffy and unusually dry. He kept watching out into the empty gallery beyond. On the wall, a tiny red light began flashing, a sensor of some kind, though an alarm did not sound. An environmental sensor, perhaps, measuring the humidity for the sake of the display's contents. Finn's body heat and his breathing, along with the open door to the back hall, tripped some kind of silent alarm. He quickly snatched up all the pens and pencils from both the black office mug and the cork globe. He was nearly out of the office door when he saw a scroll of architectural plans leaning up against the desk. Walt had told Wayne that he had plans for this place. Finn, like Wayne and others, had taken the wrong meaning. Plans as in drawings, not plans as in ideas. Finn scooped them up. He heard 3 loud thuds on the gallery's outer door, another signal from Willa. Someone was coming again. Finn hurried out the back office's back door, shut it carefully, and headed down the back hallway. But where to go, he wondered. He saw an exit sign at either end of the hallway. Which way? He looked left, looked right, but was frozen by indecision. He headed right, away from Willow's warning. Down the narrow hall, a jog left, he faced a metal exit door with a panic bar. He hesitated, for at that very second, an icy frost splintered and cracked the inside surface of the door. Someone was just on the other side, and it was not security guards this time. The frosty image slowly took the shape of a human hand. Finn jumped back. He could see beneath now, could feel the same penetrating cold getting to him again. He turned to run, but he couldn't move his legs. He teetered, ready to fall. The frost on the inside of the door spread from the thin fingers of the hand like a web. Finn glanced down to see that the floor had iced up beneath him. It was like standing on an ice skating rink. Then his body moved forward, all on its own, sliding on the ice as if drawn by a magnet. He put out his hands to stop himself, but they stuck to the door. That force continued to pull. Now his body glued itself to the door. Inch by inch, his head was pulled until his cheek froze to the metal. Pulled against the door's panic bar, he feared the door might come open. Whatever was on the other side, wanted the pens and pencils in his pocket. It was an overtaker. His plans squirted out. The plans squirted out from under his arm and came unrolled as they hit the floor. Finn could see they were faded blueprints of his favorite parts. One by one, the sheets slipped under the door while Finn was helpless to stop them. The panic bar inched ahead, and as it did, the mechanism drew the bolt of the lock away from the lip of metal that secured the door shut. Behind him, the voices inside the gallery grew louder as the security guards drew closer. "Hey, Manny, over here! I think I saw something!" The guards were in the back hallway. Whatever was on the other side of the door made the sound like a wintry wind. Finn tried to dismiss it, ignore it, but it grew louder. Then, from outside the door, Finn heard shouting. The roar of the wind immediately lessened, fading away, replaced by the sound of running feet. The ice on the inside of the door slowly melted, sending streams of water rushing down. Finn heard the slap of boots as the security guards drew closer. He pushed the panic bar. The ice cracked and the door opened. Finn tore some skin off the palm of his hands as he pulled away from the icy bar. Bright late afternoon sunlight blinded him. He could just vaguely make out Willa, a good distance away, running toward him. Behind him, a girl with long hair. Jez? Amanda? Finn took off in the direction, curious to find out who had caused the ice. The fleeing girl rounded the building's back corner, out of sight. Finn sprinted to catch up. "Hey, wait, you, wait up!" He was no longer afraid of this person. He wanted answers. He too hurried around the corner, collided with someone as they went down hard. Finn came to his knees, dazed. "You?" he said. He sat face to face with Amanda. "You?" he said again, desperate for an explanation. "You caused the cold?" "Finn, you're the one, Amanda?" He gasped in disbelief, hating her for all her lives. "Me?" She looked astonished. But was she just acting? She said in a whisper, "Did you get what you came for?" Finn couldn't get a word out, his chest tight, his fists clenched. "Finn, please, you got this wrong." He rose to his feet and backed away from her, but not daring to take his eyes off her. "I trusted you, Amanda," he said. "Finn," she pleaded, there's so much to explain, but not here. "Not anywhere," he fired back. "Not ever." "Run," Willa called out, catching up. "They're coming." Amanda, still seated on the pavement, had tears in her eyes. Willa came to a breathless stop. "Finn, the guards!" He and Amanda had not broken eye contact, though they did now. He backed up at first, still looking at her. Then he turned and ran as hard and as fast as he could. That is where we're going to stop for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Remember, the world is better because you guys are in it. Hope you join me tomorrow for our read aloud. The story's getting very interesting. See you, everybody.